So first we're going to open up the program. And then we're going to select from template, new from template, apply predefined template, and then we're going to find that video file from the respective cohort. So in case the video doesn't show up, just make sure to click here and click all files. And also remember that we are not doing Barnes Maze day 1. We are only analyzing trials starting from Barnes Maze day 2 and after. So the first video should be BM2T1. Okay, once we have our file, our first video file, we'll click Next. Make sure it's rodent and mouse, click Next. And then we want to change this arena template to Barnes Maze, and it should automatically prompt us to 20 hole zones. That's perfect. This should be darker, and then we don't need to change any of that. And then from there, we can click Finish. We can name our file, or call it cohort 7 underscore Barnes Maze, and then you can just put your name. Okay. Then from there, we can go to our arena settings. And we want to grab this background image when the picture is upright in the center. Okay, so let's find a moment where that's true. So this is perfect. We grab this, and then from there we can start drawing our arena. So we want to first click the normal mode and highlight everything. That way we can move the arena as a whole. So first let's try and align the borders as so. And it's not going to fit perfectly. Just try to get as close as you can. So that's good. Notice how the goal box is not over the actual goal box. And we don't want to have to move all these circles. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this circle, this rotate, and that's going to allow us to rotate the entire thing. So make sure you have the entire thing highlighted before you rotate that. Rotate until the goal box is as close to the actual hole as possible. Okay. Then from here, we can draw our scale to calibrate. Okay. And we want to draw that line across. And that's going to be, make sure it's as straight as possible. And then the diameter is going to be 121.92 centimeters. Okay. And then from there, we can start editing each of these individual hole zones. Okay. So the width and height for all these hole zones is going to be 8.7 centimeters. So you're going to want to do that for all of them. The entry zone, which is going to be the hole around the goal box, that is going to be 12.9. Okay. Once you've done that, go ahead and try and center all these circles. And then make sure the zone label is pointing to that circle. Once you've done all that, then we need to draw our quadrants. Okay, so what I'll do is you want to select shape and draw arena. And what we're going to do is actually we're going to add a zone group. We're going to call this quadrants. Okay, click on that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to draw a horizontal and vertical line that's going through the center. As so. Trying to make it as straight as possible. Okay, so we see here how the arena is pointing to these individual zones. We don't want this, and that's because I'm hovering over the arena section in the top right here. So if that ever happens, you have to redraw your lines, hover over the quadrants, and then draw those lines again. We see here that we don't see that arena highlighting just one zone. Okay. Now that's all done, we can add our zone labels. This is going to be Q1, just like we did with the novel and familiar object. This is going to be Q2, 3, then Q4. Once this is all done, you should be able to validate your setup and move on to the trial list. Okay. So the video file uploading for Barnes Maze is a little more complicated. So see here, often when you don't have all the videos, you got to click all files. We started with 89 BM2T1. So what I like to do is I'll type up the number here. And then what I'll do is I'll list it from start to finish. Okay, except for the last one. So next one we'll do BM2, T2, and then we'll do BM2, T3. And then do BM3, T1. I gotta add more trials here. And then lastly, the last one. So I would actually do this for each of the numbers. And then in terms of the trial control settings, that's going to be different for each Barnes Maze day, so I wouldn't touch that for now. But what we can do is put in the animal ID. Okay, so we know this is all going to be 89. Okay, and then from there we can move on to the detection settings. Okay, so we see here the video automatically shows up. We want to click automated setup, rodent, and then we want to make sure we are trying to draw the image around the rat or the mouse when it is either horizontal or vertical. So this is a good example. So we want to grab it from the base of the tail to the tip of the nose, like so. So a common issue is that the color of the mouse is very similar to the metronome. So we want to fine tune that. You'll see here. It overlaps a lot, right? We don't want this happening. So we often have to adjust make it a little bit lighter so that it just looks at the mouse. Okay, so that's good. And then from there, we can move on to acquisition. And then we only want to start the recording when the mouse is outside the beaker and first being tracked by the EthoVision. So we see here, we lift the beaker and then the mouse is being tracked right away. So this is perfect. I'm gonna click ready to start and then it'll just track that. And we want to stop this as soon as we see the entire mouse in the hole, including the tail. You see that happens, and it'll immediately move on to the next trial. So if you need to redo a trial, you just select here. You can select on whatever trial you want, and just select clear tracks where you reuse the video reference, and it'll let you reacquire that. Okay, so once you finish acquiring all your videos, you want to, again, go through Track Editor and make sure that the head and tail isn't switched, just like with a novel object. We zoom out here. And we also want to make sure that we're not tracking anything at the end of the video that isn't the mouse, because we see here, it's kind of like jumping all over the place. We don't want that. So let's actually play it from start and make sure that the head and tail is being tracked correctly. So we see the blue should be at the tail at all times. The blue should always be leading over the purple. Okay, so that looks good. We see here we don't want that part. So let's try to find as soon as the mouse is in the hole. Okay, so that is perfect. Right here. Can we see how this line jumps to the metronome? We don't want that. So what we're going to do here is clear all this and then select set to missing. Okay. Okay. And then when we go to the data analysis, what you want to do is click on one of these, and then I like to rename them into data. And then we want to record slightly different data compared to the novel and familiar object. Okay, so the first thing is we want to find, we'll delete these first. And we actually want distance moved. Okay. We'll track the center point, and this is all good, just the total. Okay. We also want time in the zones. Okay, so select here, and we want to select just the entry and the goal box. And then we want cumulative duration, percentage too. And then we don't need the frequency. And again, we want this both for the entry and the goal box. Then we click add. Okay. And then rename this to target zone. Okay. And next, we want to get the quadrants. So click here in zone. And then we want to find how much time the cumulative percentage they spend in each of these quadrants. So only select quadrants. We can do center point. And then for this, we want to do cumulative duration percentage. Click add, and then change this to quadrants. And then lastly, we want to find the target visits and errors. So select this, and we want to select the target zones being the goal box and the entry zone. Then all the non-target zones are going to be all the holes that are not those zones. So that's going to be H1 through 19. Okay. And we only want the target first errors, the first visits, the revisits, and then the total errors. So we actually don't need these first two. And then we go to body point and make sure this is nose point. And then for trial statistics, we want latency, or sorry, just frequency. We do not want that. And then if we go to our statistics, we should see trial one being calculated. Select calculate, and we should see those coming up. Okay. And then make sure for the layout, we add the animal ID to the row. And that should be it.